Greetings, everyone. Welcome to Thursday. It's the penultimate day of week number 10 for the class, which leaves pretty much only finals weekend writing your final paper to finish. So I'm praying for you all. I know there's a lot of demands during finals week, both with just the life circumstances that you all have, plus all the assignments that you need to finish before the end of the quarter. So praying for you all. A couple of details and then kind of a bringing the class together. First detail is, if you would, I would really appreciate your honest feedback in the evaluation section. You can find that in Canvas. And as I craft the class for future classes to be helpful both for their ministry context and just their degrees, I take your feedback really seriously, both in content and style. And so, yeah, I'd really appreciate it. If you like the class, please do give feedback as well. And if you didn't like the class, you can and please do give feedback too. I take them all into account, and then I reshape and restructure the class based on some feedback over a couple of quarters. I won't be teaching this class for I think 2 to 3 quarters, so I'll have some time to change it up a little bit. So your feedback will be really appreciated. The second thing is your papers. I've said this before, but just a reiteration. I'm looking forward to reading them. I always learn something during this time, and basically what I want you to do is to define a conflict or a question, an issue that you want to address, to narrate both sides, or if there's multiple sides of the conflict, narrate all the sides of the conflict in such a way that the proponents of that particular side would say, yeah, you understand our perspective on this conflict. And then bring in the biblical and the practical peacemaking aspects from Cahill and from Thistlewaite's book, from Miroslav Volf, from Racial Conflict and Healing, all the things that you've read in the course textbooks, and then also some outside resources to bring them to bear on the question. I don't want this to be kind of a here are the positions and here is the history and the story. I would like you to make an argument of, okay, we're going to apply some of these things and we're going to make a case for a particular course of action. One thing to do as you do this is not just to grab some of these things out of theoretical error, but to see if there's any groups that have tried what you're proposing, and to do a little bit of research there and say, yeah, this particular NGO or this particular government structure has tried something like this, and so I think, and it has been successful, so I think this would be an appropriate move into peacemaking. And then the second thing is to say, hey, this hasn't worked. Several groups have tried this, so maybe something different might be necessary, and here's what we're proposing, or what I'm proposing. So I look forward to reading your paper. Okay, let's talk about the course. This isn't going to be long. I'm just going to try to organize the closet from ET 520 and give you some hangers to kind of, this is what we've talked about. This is how I see them hanging together. So we started with Lisa Cahill, and we read Blessed Are the Peacemakers. And in that book, I think she does a nice job of representing just war theory fairly well, representing pacifism fairly well, arguing for a middle ground that's called peacemaking or peace building. And then she also articulates, I think, pretty well the moral bind that we can get into, that has no real clear solutions this side of the full redemption of Jesus Christ and the setting of all the world straight again in the new heavens and the new earth. And so I think she does a good job historically with that. And then she does a good job representing each side faithfully in such a way that they would say, yes, she gets us. And so we started there. And then we looked at the 10 practices of peacemaking from Thistlewaite's book. And we looked at them from an interfaith angle. We could have looked at them just from a Christian angle and a Christian lens through the Sermon on the Mount. But I think that it's helpful to see that the three great Abrahamic religions do share some things in common that we can work towards, especially in some conflicts like in Israel and Palestine, even though those are very intense and very severe at times. And so I wanted to look at that from multiple angles. Some traditions are a little stronger than others in some of the peacemaking practices. As you read, some are admittedly, they say to us that this is not a strength, and we're not even sure that this might be something that we focus on. So that's what I wanted to take a look at. And then we read Miroslav Volf, we read Racial Conflict and Healing, a couple of small articles, Walter Wink, and then also Genesis and the Abundant Life. The thing that I think ties these together in relationship to peacemaking is that the idea of shalom or peace or wholeness, life, all these different words are used interchangeably in some ways throughout the scripture as the end goal for the work of the redemptive work of Christ. And then as we participate as a church, the redemptive work of the church in the world. And so with Volf, I wanted to emphasize the 4 movements of embrace. The opening of the arms of identity, right? That you're going to love better if you're secure in yourself. And love is more meaningful if you know who you are. The person or the group that you're reaching out to knows who they are. You know your differences well, and you still make a meaningful move to open your arms for embrace. That has a lot of meaning. The second movement of embrace is waiting. And that's the movement of vulnerability. That when you open your arms, that makes you vulnerable to pain from the other person. You're opening yourself to another person. And there's a vulnerability in there that comes along with love, that comes along with being human. And so we just have to embrace that vulnerability. Then when somebody moves towards us, or a group moves towards us and we embrace, that embrace is an exchange of grace between equals. And so we have something that God has given to us. They have something that God has given to them. And we exchange that grace together in embrace. What Volf says is this embrace takes both forgiveness and justice. That there has been wrongs done, and those who have been wronged move in forgiveness. Those who have done wrong or see wrong move towards others with justice. So we equalize the conversation and we equalize the exchange of grace. So that's the third movement, is the embrace. And then the fourth movement is, again, opening the arms to release the person to be all that God has created them to be. So in the exchange of grace, there's an assumption that we walk away nearer to God and nearer to our who we are supposed to be in that. So I really like that picture of embrace that kind of promotes a certain kind of human flourishing that we talk about when we talk about shalom. So, and then we looked at racial conflict and healing a little bit to define the problem, but also how do we move towards a solution in this problem. And then, the other articles are just kind of meant to complement one another in this idea of we're moving towards one another in peacemaking, and our role and our call as Christians in the church is to exhibit a different kind of love, a different kind of justice that promotes the flourishing of others, sometimes even above ourselves, but at least we love others as ourselves. So it moves us towards fulfilling the great commandment, that we love God more deeply and that we love our neighbors as ourselves. So that's the general idea of the class. Of course, the textbooks, the lectures, all those things are meant to add texture to all those different layers of meaning in the course. And I hope it's been beneficial to you. I really have appreciated all of your hard work, how you've interacted with the material, how you've interacted with one another. Sometimes I have to correct a class because we're talking about peacemaking, but they're not having conversations in the forums in a way that promotes peace and flourishing. And so, but that hasn't been the case with your all's group, and I've really appreciated that. So blessings on you for finals week as you write the final paper. And please do, if we get a chance to cross paths, please do introduce yourself. It's always hard with asynchronous courses to get a sense of and feel like you know somebody deeply after the class. And so if we ever happen to intersect in person, please do introduce yourself in the context. And I would love to have more conversations with you in person. So have a great ending to your quarter. Thanks again for a great class.